The sociological implications of the family. Catherine Ann Young. What is the family? Now, the family is defined as social arrangements whereby people related by ancestry, marriage, or cohabitation live together, form an economic unit, meaning they contribute to the household financially together. They contribute to groceries, gas, household expenses, things of that nature, and oftentimes they raise children. Social analysts feel that the changes in recent decades have led to a loss in family values. Now, the social problem here with the family is the breakdown. Losing the values, losing what it means to be a tight-knit group of people who are bound together by these things like ancestry, marriage, and cohabitation. That's the social problem, the breakdown of the family. Now, there are 5 myths of the family that contribute to this breakdown. The first being the myth of a stable and harmonious past. The second is the myth of separate worlds. Following that, the myth of the monolithic family form, the myth of the unified family experience, and lastly, the myth of the family decline as the cause of social problems. For the first myth, family historians have found that there is no golden age of the family. So back in the days where the Brady Bunch was a normal thing to see and having these values instilled in television, historians have found that these things don't actually exist. Past familial units aren't better or worse than what we have today. But one major transition of marriage, which has changed the family, is a change from the definition being an economic or political institution to a voluntary love relationship. So nowadays, people are no longer necessarily getting married because it benefits them financially or it looks good for their families, or a son is getting married off to someone else's daughter. People are getting into these relationships, lifelong relationships, because they want to, because they're in love with their partner. And the modern problems that we have now, they did exist in the past. So there were illegitimate children in the past, people left their spouses in the past, and there were extramarital affairs in the past. Now, for myth number 2, the family is idealistically a place of refuge from the outside world. The private life and the public life are 2 separate entities, and the glorification of this private life is oftentimes the pitfall of many families. These tight-knit trust, love units can turn into what happens in this house stays in this house, and this can foster emotional aggression, physical aggression, competition among spouses, and even competition among children. Myth number 3, families don't look how they are, quote unquote, supposed to look. Less than 10% of families match this model of having the breadwinning father who gets up in the morning and heads off to work, and a homemaking mother who cooks and cleans all day and cares for the children, and a host of children who live in this single family house. That is as unlikely as it is to see a UFO nowadays. It's less than 10%. There are many different types of families. There are single parent households where a mother is leading or a father is leading. There are step parent households and blended families where you have someone who has children from a past relationship, marry someone with children from a past relationship, and they blend these children and they blend their love and they live in one household, and that is still a version of a family. There also are extended multi-generational families where you have children living with their parents' parents, and their great-great-grandparents, and the wealth of knowledge is all just under one roof. Myth number 4, everyone doesn't experience family the same way. Even the people that you are actually in a family with. Family is a gendered institution. And by gendered institution, I mean men and women experience their marriage and their families in different ways because they have different roles. They make decisions differently. They have different household responsibilities. They express themselves intimately differently. They have different, methods of sexuality. And in the same way, the children in these households, the girls and the boys, they experience their childhood differently. They interact with their parents differently. There are different expectations on boys and girls as far as their household chores or what is expected of them in their extracurricular activities. They have different rules and different punishments. Myth number 5, families breaking apart is not the root of every social problem. Now, there are bad seeds in the world. There are, people that are negative contributors to society, but it's not necessarily an indicator that they were raised in a fatherless or motherless home. The downfall of the family is not what creates, quote unquote bad people. That is the fifth myth of the breakdown of the family. Now, when you look at the family from a system blame approach, you can look at it when it comes to economics, the divorce rates, and even why people get married in the first place. Sometimes, if you start off in a lower class situation, the chances of you getting out of that lower class situation are marginally small. And that is due in part to the systems and the institution that are already in place. And white women are depicted as weak in society. So they are, drawn to, they're the pick of the barrel for men who are more likely to be abusive. And that is due to things that we see in TV and music and magazines. And African Americans, they divorce at higher rates because they are systematically at a disadvantage financially. And financial hardship is one of the leading causes of divorce in America. And it is a system that is already in place to keep African Americans disadvantaged financially. Therefore, their marriages are going to be systematically disadvantaged as well. Now, when you look at the family from the person blame approach, someone might assume that a lower class person is lazy and they're consciously having children knowing that they can't afford them. And aggressive men think it's okay to abuse their wives and children because they have been accustomed to situations where they're never, being held accountable for their actions. And many people marry simply for love out of attraction. They don't take into account the inevitable hardships that are going to come from marriage when you make those vows, for better or for worse, or for richer or for poor. Now, the social problems related to the family are as follows. There's stratification, disadvantaged children, divorce, domestic violence, and child abuse and neglect. These are just a few of the social problems that come from the breakdown of a family. Now, with stratification, people are growing up in different social contexts, which is meaning that there are opportunities that are afforded to some children that aren't afforded to others. So the idealistic middle-class family, they rarely exist without the contribution of a two-parent income nowadays. Upper-class families usually include the wealth of many relatives and many household units, so they maintain privileged life chances and access for their children. So nowadays we have modern families and postmodern families, and they both include multiple family forms and a nuclear family that emerges in different ways. Women nowadays are in the labor force and they're doing more than taking care of children. Now, divorce. Divorce is defined as the formal dissolution of marriage. 1 in 5 marriages, they end in divorce, and African Americans are more likely to divorce than whites and Latinos. And divorce rates have increased, and scholars think it is because females are more independent nowadays. There's a greater tolerance for divorce by religious groups. And in modern times, you can get a divorce and it doesn't have to be someone else's fault. You can just get a divorce. Men typically, they have more advantages than disadvantages when it comes to a divorce, even though 2 out of 3 of divorces are initiated by women. Women have most of the disadvantages when it comes to breaking apart this family unit, and the children that come from divorces, they oftentimes experience low school performance and some behavioral problems. Now, violence in the family. There's domestic violence and then there's child abuse and neglect. Domestic violence is defined by the NVAW as a force including rape, physical assault, and stalking perpetrated by current or former spouses, cohabitating partners, and dating partners. Now, the rate at which, partners are abused has been linked by scholars to men's unemployment rates. And poverty is one of the leading causes women stay in abusive relationships. Now, domestic violence is also vice versa. Men can be domestically abused by their wives. It's rare, but it happens. Now, with child abuse and neglect, child abuse is defined as a distinctive act of violence and nonviolence and acts of omission that place children at risk. So you can be abusing and neglecting your child even if you never put your hands on them, denying them food, denying them a safe place to learn and grow and sleep, not allowing them to bathe as punishment. These things are all under child abuse. And child abuse is more prevalent than domestic violence. 7 in 10 abused children, however, do not become abusive adults. They do develop some antisocial behaviors, language deficits, and sometimes even physical deficits are consequences of child abuse. Now, to fix the family, we need to, as a society, recognize that no family, no marriage, or child is perfect. We need to spend more time with our families and have a concrete vision for the family. We have to work together to maintain a healthy lifestyle, healthy values, and a healthy environment. And within marriages, you have to get married for the right reasons. And you have to understand that hard times are inevitable, but they are possible to get through if you marry the right person. And when it comes to rearing children, we have to provide the next generation with every opportunity to expand their horizons. We have to reinforce their talents and discipline them appropriately. We have to ensure that they're included in the vision for the family. And if these things, and many more things, but these things importantly are instilled in the values of our family, I do believe that the rates of divorce will decrease, the instances of domestic violence and child abuse will decrease, and we will live in a more harmonious and beautiful society. And these are the social problems of the family and how to address them.